just checking here to see if I'm showing up on my Facebook page. And it looks like I am. I'm going to make a few adjustments. So we're pretty much in the camera. Okay, it's just a few minutes after 2, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. To start with, I am Chris Smith. I am a independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and I've been a demonstrator for like 26, 27 years, and but haven't done that many videos in Facebook. So I hope you'll give me a little bit of grace as we get this card done. This is a card made with the Night Divine stamp set that I posted last week. I'd earlier showed one that was done with just the vanilla and gold, and that there is a video out for that one too. But it's done with this set. I just used the Joy and Peace for this card. And then I only used one of the dies. There are several, and they do go really well with some designer series paper that was designed for this set. I haven't done too many because there are many, many good samples out there. But this one was a little different. And actually, these are patterned after the way I do my own decorating. As I had mentioned before, I have an off-white ceramic, just simple 3-piece nativity set, but I often set it in a bed of greens. So that was the inspiration for this card. Plus, I've seen many beautiful sets that looked as though they are carved from wood. So I thought this would be real fun to try. To start with, before I forget, this wood is from the Joy of Christmas DSP. Now, I do paper shares with my team, and I only really have the 6x6 pieces to work with. Luckily, I do have an extra one, so I can repeat some of these cards. But this card, and then the other card that I shared earlier today, let's see if this is getting in the camera here. They work with the same one, and you can get all of that easily out of one piece. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. I'm going to slide these out of the way, and I'm going to move this up so I can see the big screen. Let's see. I don't know. There's a trick towards getting it so I can see the comments, and I don't think that's happening. So if some of you are out there, I will answer the questions later, but I really appreciate it if you did show up. I'm going to give that one more try to see if it will go. It's full screen, but it's still not letting me see the comments. That's something I'm going to have to work a little harder on. Anyway, let's get going with this card. To start with, I'm going to get this, our nativity set cut out of here. And I'm going to want to plan ahead to use the least amount of paper necessary. So I'm going to put this close to the edge, and because I'm doing that, I'm going to put a little bit of washi tape on it. Most of my pieces I will die cut later, but this one will get going. And the thing that I'm going to look for is I'm going to try to get my border pieces, as you can see here, out of this piece, leaving myself open for some others over there for different cards and designs. So I'm going to go ahead and put this, I'm not going to move my Stampin' Cut and Emboss around I'm just a few feet off camera. And I'll be right back as I cut this. So here you can see I've cut it just at the edge. And there's really only a few pieces that need to be punched out of this. Some of them come out on their own. In fact, I think they did. Sometimes you have to poke a little piece out of the manger, but that seemed to come out pretty well. You're also going to want to cut a second piece, and I do it out of the pecan pie because that seems pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and put those together. And if you are new to watching my videos, you'll see that I don't get too fussy about my gluing. I put a few pieces on, and those, like the staff for the shepherd is pretty skinny, and if that needs a little more work securing it down, I will do that with this next trick I show you. So, our neighbor is getting a new furnace installed, and our dog gets excited every time he goes out to his truck. So you might hear, it's not actually, it's our daughter's dog, and he is with us during the day. So I put that piece down, and the rest of it seems pretty good. But what I do here is I just put a little bit of glue on a skinny scrap of paper, and I go back and use that to get under those little tiny pieces that are hard to secure and get glue on without getting it all over your fingers. So our manger scene is ready. The next part we're going to do is this base part, and I'm going to use the Joy and Peace. Now, this is something I do want to point out to people. While the greetings in this set are truly lovely, and I've seen all of them used beautifully with this set, this is a standalone die set. In other words, all of the pieces, which are here, work well on their own. They don't require a stamp to be useful. So if you do have a collection of a lot of Christmas greetings, you could just go with the dies alone. And they, you might have seen where people will trim off some of these, so you can have a shepherd and use just the Lord is my shepherd greeting, or you could do one just with wise men because they come off the edges, and you've got the camel here and of course the animals. I even borrowed these cute little clouds for another project. But just so you know, depending on what your collection is, you can customize how you would do this. Okay, the next part is we're going to add this simple Joy and Peace greeting, and I'm going to hold this card down, but it's roughly just a little less than an inch. I'm stamping the greeting in pecan pie, and I've actually done this. You want to look not at the curves, but at the O and the E-A-C-E to determine whether it's straight. That looks fine. I am going to use the wood pattern, and I am not thinking of the name right now. It is in the annual catalog. You're going to want to put that through your cut and emboss, and then you'll end up with another piece, and I have already done that through the magic of video. So I have that piece here. One thing I do when I am doing embossed pieces that need to span the entire width or length of a card is I make sure that I'm starting with a piece that is slightly larger. That way it will make it to the whole edge, and I can easily trim off the extra of this. I also should mention that this is the regular Very Vanilla, as opposed to my card base, which is thick. So I think the regular thickness takes the embossing just a little bit better, and there's really no reason to add any extra thickness to this piece. So we're going to, I think we'll set that aside and go back and build our card base. Oh, one more thing before we do that. I'm going to show you what I did with my greens. Now you could cut them, and I've seen a friend of mine has jumped on this idea too, and she has done it differently and just cut the greenery out of the cardstock, and that works just fine. I think maybe what I'm thinking of is very often instead of pine, I use cedar as my greens, and if you've ever used that, there's kind of a texture to them, and that's why I like getting some texture on my greens. I started with garden green cardstock, and I borrowed another stamp. Anything will really work, because when you cut that detail out of there, it's going to show texture. But I used this piece out of Winter Owls. As you know, I've done some work with that. And I'm just going to stamp a few of these on here. You'll get going, and you're going to have some stems in the middle, but if you can stamp a good number of them off, then you'll have just a fewer of them. And then you're going to use this die, and it doesn't matter if you die cut first or trim the edge first, but you just want to plan it so that you are going to have some extra space. There is, this is probably 3/8 of an inch. Not much, but it's plenty for our extra trim. So I think we're just going to go ahead and do that. And there are different things you can do. Let me watch to see that I have this in the camera all right. I use all different widths of this skinny strip, but you could just go pick a piece on your marking where the measurements start. I could go maybe just a tad bit further. I'm going to cut 2 skinny strips off there. And actually I have done with this with the previous one. And then I'm going to cut another one just a little bit thicker. That's why it's nice to cut your greens first and just use what's left. And we'll use this other piece to form kind of a base for our greens when we try to stick them together. Okay. One more piece we're going to do here is I'm going to cut off this piece. There, I have a pretty good size that isn't touched. And then I'm going to, I think, trim that down a little bit. That probably wasn't the best way to go, but I'm going to want to get 4 1/4. I'm going to go a tad bit beyond here. And I want a 1/2 inch for each side. So I'm going to double check that is this. I might have used a bit more because we have more to work with. Let's go 5/8. As a rule, I tend to cut 1/2-inch strips when I'm doing a border on both sides, but this card, because it is a landscape orientation, I think can handle a little bit more. So I have 2 strips. Oh, and these are going the wrong way. I was going to talk about that. This will still work. But you do want to pay attention to your orientation. I made this first card, the grain is going up and down, where the sides, the grain is going sideways. I kind of goofed that up on this one, but I think we'll get to see what it looks like. Okay, then you're also going to want to cut this piece, and I have already done that. So I have my greens right here. I'm not sure where my snips yet, so you use the big scissors here. So you're going to want to cut, we won't use the pine cones. And actually on my original card, it did get kind of thick. And I used more than one cutting. So this time we're going to use fewer and see how it looks. Then you can, if you see them side by side, you'll know how you want to do it also. Okay, let's get this one underway. I think we'll cut this one here. In fact, you could use pieces of the, if you wanted to get a lot of green, you could take pieces from the pine cone areas, but I don't think you'll need them. I can go back and get more if I need it, but we're going to try making this one just a bit leaner. And I think it will still give a very pleasing effect. So then what I do is I'm going to use one of my strips. Let's push this. How does that work that my paper keeps slipping? I might start in the camera view and then it moves. So I just measured, about how wide the base of my nativity is and cut a piece there. I'm going to grab my chair here. I have counter height tables in my craft room, which is nice because you can stand up, but then after a while, it's good to move back. I think I had a piece of pecan pie in there. Anyway, so what we're going to do here is, I thought it was easier to use your Stampin' Seal or a tape type adhesive. So I'm going to run a bit on there. You could, it's my preference, but I think you could use just your regular multi-purpose liquid on there too, but let's try it this way. And you're going to want some pieces that go to the side. So let's get some there before we go too far along. And it's okay if they go up a little bit. And I'll just stick them along. Let's see. We can move this guy. I think I want this one to go right in here. And that one can go in there. Let's just set this out here and play with it a bit. I think in some ways it won't look quite as thick, but I think it's going to look just as pretty if it's thinner, like this. Let's see. Do we get anything else off of here? There's a few more. I'm going to cut those like that. Let's see. I think I'd like to have one more coming down like that. And do I want to, yeah, I think these are cut off. I'm going to trim them off a little bit that way. And I don't know that there's anything left to glue that one to, but I think one little spot of glue right here will do it. Okay, so I think that's going to work. Then I'm going to just run a little glue on the back pecan pie side of this, and we'll cover up any of that that green band that is showing. And if it's okay if some comes up behind too, because that would be kind of natural looking. Most of these spots are ink, so I think that's going to work. In fact, I might want to trim this one off a bit. I think I'll go right here. And maybe the same with this side. Okay, we are going to need to trim this off. So I'm going to grab my trimmer here again. And while this starts off as 5.5, we want to take it down to, I'll double check, but I'm thinking this is 4.25. And that's right. So, and I think that's pretty well centered. So 5.5 to 4.25 is 1.25 inches. So 5 1/8, I think, is what we want to come off. And that kind of makes sense if our border sides are about 5 1/8. Then if they all matched perfectly, that would still be right, but we do have some extra pieces of green that are going to lay in there and cover up anything that's just a little bit different. I think that's it for our that piece, and now we're going to be ready to assemble. And I'm going to check. I think my cardstock wants to fold this way, so this is the way we're going to do it. Let's get a real nice. I prefer to just play it by ear rather than, match up my corners and bone fold. You can score it if you prefer. Sometimes if I haven't cut something else quite right, or it came from the factory just a little bit off, they don't line up, and that way I can make sure the corners line up and everything turns out. Then I usually like to start with my side borders. Sometimes when I'm using designer paper, I'll end up with if I'm doing the portrait type edge, then I will have, and I know I have extra because I probably have a 6-inch strip, but these are just barely over. Easy to trim the DSP off rather than trying to trim a double thickness card. And I want to leave a little bit, if there's just a hair over, that gives you, I'll show you what I do. I trim off on the cut edge, like so. And then on the folded edge, I just do kind of a thumb crease. It's not really even enough to cut, and doing that thumb, or you could use your bone folder, just curve that paper just over the fold, not actually to the other side, but then that gives you a nice finish. Then we're going to move to putting our main panel on. So this main panel ends up being a square. It's 4 1/4 because that's the height of our card, and then 4 1/4 as far as the width goes. And that pretty much fits right in there. You could leave it like that if you want, but I'm gonna slide it over a bit. It's okay to have just a hair at the top so you can fingernail press it over the fold. Trim off any extra. Remember, I had allowed my paper to be bigger in case it shrunk in the embossing folder. I hate when that happens. Anyway, so the base is done with the exception of my my little pieces I cut off the greens. So let's do, I'm going to go with the skinny ones I cut off before because those were more fully stamped. Do I have the right ones? Yep. So for this, I'm going to go back to my little glue strip. I'm going to put a little bit of fresh glue that's gotten tacky, and it probably won't transfer very well. I am going to not even let my fingers touch it. I'm just going to bounce that along the middle. Put the gluing strip down. Now these are plenty, oh, got some on here anyway. The wonders of TV, right? Okay. I didn't go to the edge, but I can do that now. I go and add a little bit in there, press it down, and press that one down. Once again, we'll trim off the extra. There's obviously enough to cut. Then we're going to get our second one down the middle. Like that, and then come back and do the ends. I make a lot of like one-of-a-kind cards, and I know if you're making multiples, you can plan ahead and use adhesive paper before you die cut, and then your pieces will all be beautifully full of adhesive. But when you're making one-of-a-kind and you're designing as you go, you're not always thinking about putting, adding that to your paper before you cut. So I think this is a good trick to have. Okay, I think that's plenty. I think I like the lacy look of, I think that's plenty of greens. I like the lacy look that you get by having fewer. So I think you could easily get away with just one. And you know what? One other thing. I decided to use, oh, where's my mini sheet? I thought I had a mini sheet. Well, we can use black ones for this. Because the greens got kind of thick, I'm going to put some mini glue dots, or mini dimensionals on my people here. And we will call that enough for TV, right? I'm going to show you a few other cards when we're done with this one that use this this same paper. I'm going to check that I'm pretty much in the middle, and I think I am. And there are two cards. I guess they're still each one of a kind, but there's probably a little bit less stamping and a little more less greens, but they do have a real lacy effect when you can see through to the white. So I think one die cut of the more detailed Christmas Pinecone dies. I'll show you this if you're not familiar with it. When it first came out, I told myself they were way too spendy because it is an expensive die set. But a good friend of mine got them, and when I was down at her place trying them out, it was like, oh, I need these. But they do include the pine cones, and then there's like a broader one so that you can layer one on the other. And I don't know that I've used that part this year, though I have in the past. I'm going to pull out some other samples here. This is one that I just put up recently. It was actually a very summery looking rose set, but I added a few bits of greenery, Christmas or pine greenery, and a Christmas greeting. This used to be available, I think it was last year, and then they had it on the online exclusives through much of the summer. This was a Christmas in July card I did earlier. So that's another sample. And then this one, actually, I'm going to set these aside. I did this one, again, using the Christmas Pinecone dies, along with the translucent florets. That is a set that is in the September through December mini catalog, and it will be carrying over. So it's kind of a nice summery set too. Anyway, I actually cut some of the petal layers from this same Joy of Christmas DSP. By the way, it comes in 12 by 12. I've just cut it down to 6 by 6. I find it easier to design with, and I don't currently do scrapbooking, so I don't worry about needing the bigger sizes. And I actually used this piece for the leaves, plus some of the greenery. And then this print that's just along the border is from that paper also. The greeting is from, oh no, I'm going to get the name wrong. Let's see, it's the Stars at Night. It's part of that same big suite with the Nativity Night Divine set. Let's see, what else did I want to show you in here that kind of relate. Okay, this was today's card on my Facebook and Instagram pages that uses the wood grain here, and actually I cut out my these are from Wanted to Say. The Feel Better Soon is a die cut, and that is also cut out of the wood grain. And of course that is the masks, Abundant Beauty, that I think they're out, but hopefully they're going to be back for at least a bit in December. So there's that one. We saw that one, this one before. This is a very simple one with pecan pie, watercolor paper, pecan pie ink, pecan pie layer, and crumb cake. And then this is the last one I wanted to draw your attention to. This time I cut those dies out of white and used it with to give a flocked tree effect with my Christmas tree lights. Anyway, that is that one. I'm going to run through these real quick because I don't know if I'm going to get to doing much designing, but these are the papers that are designed to go with Once again, they come in 12 by 12s. But I usually, as much stamping as I do, I don't get through a whole pack on my own unless I'm doing a class. Let's see, there's that one too. So it's real easy to make use of those other dies when you use these for a backdrop. And I'm sure you can find plenty of samples of those online. I am so sorry that I am not able to look at comments. I'm going to have to, I don't know how I can practice that, but let's see. I'm going to try flipping it one more time. Now I get the full screen and nothing extra. And then I just get a smaller screen with no comments. I'm not sure. Could be nobody's out there and you will watch the replay. Anyway, that is it for today. I really appreciate you taking a time to, oh, no, I have to talk about a few more things. Most of you maybe have seen this out there on the internet, but there is the seasonal sale is going on with Stampin' Up right now, and there is 10% off ribbon and trim, 15% off inks, and 20% off papers. And all these products, it applies to those that are in the annual catalog. And it even goes to the watercolor paper like I showed on this one. I stocked up on some of that. Various cardstocks, envelopes, vellum, all that kind of thing is included. Even the specialty papers like these, I love these shimmery colors. They come in Lost Lagoon, Berry Burst, Bubble Bath, Pretty Peacock, and there is one more that I'm not coming up with, but it's a really nice collection. And I haven't checked to see if anything's run out yet, but there are a lot of good deals out there. I think that's what I will close off with today. I hope you are having a good week, and we'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.